So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra versus the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Which one to choose? We'll start with the S26 Ultra. Pricing is going to start at $12.99. The iPhone starts at $11.99. So a little bit cheaper on the iPhone to start, but as you start going up the storage line, they both become pretty up there in the price tag. However, I do think if you took advantage of the pre-order on Samsung, you did get a better deal than the trade-ins you'll usually find on the iPhone side, especially if you were trading in Samsung phones. But now those trade-in values aren't so pretty at this current time. However, you might see a little bit more discounts on the S line throughout the year at a better discount or cheaper with trade-ins. But you can also do that on the Apple side as well. So both of these are pretty evenly matched in pricing, not too much different, but just slightly more at retail to start with the S26 Ultra. Let's go on to talk about the build and the design between both of these. So Samsung did actually go to a lighter and just a little bit less thicker phone here than the iPhone 17 Pro Max over here. You are looking at 7.9 millimeters, and it is wrapped around their Armor aluminum, frame right here. So they went down from titanium. You can kind of tell comparatively to the S25 Ultra that this is not quite as a premium material, but you don't really feel it too much in terms of the actual feel in the hand. You could just tell, like, by the look, it just looks more aluminum overall, but it's not really a major step back for most people, as the iPhone did go to aluminum. But I think that was kind of a miss, maybe because Samsung could have kept titanium and it would have looked more premium than the iPhone, but they went to the same thing. But I understand for heat dissipation why they went that way. But it does weigh 214 grams on the S26 Ultra, so the actual weight of this phone is pretty light to hold. One of the cons, though, is that camera island right there, while it does to me look better than the S25 Ultras with their nicer rings here, and overall just kind of like, it's just to me a better look because they went with a thinner, it's a thinner frame right here. Instead of increasing the battery size, now you have this massive rock on the table. Now, of course, could be fixed by a lot of cases out there. Most people have their phone in a case, but still, that doesn't feel very premium, especially when you take a look at the iPhone 17 Pro Max and has this camera plateau. And while this is not everybody's favorite look either, it's very flush across the top. So this phone, even without a case, has virtually no rock. So to me, that feels a little bit nicer. It feels a little bit more well thought out than the Samsung. But the Samsung, they could have just said they're going to take that sacrifice anyway for lightness on an Ultra phone, because they probably figure most people are going to be using a case anyway. And the S26 Ultra is IP68 dust and water resistance. This thing does also have Gorilla Glass Victus 2. This device, just basically, it's kind of still your premium phone right here for sure. Now, the actual look of it, I do think it looks really clean in this white color. And again, I do like the rings around the camera. I think they look a bit better here now. They just look a little bit more premium to me. With those black rings they had around the camera housing before. But you take a look up here, you'll see antenna line right there. Volume rocker, we also have a power button. At the bottom, you'll see it looks just like the S25 Ultra. You have your USB-C right there. We also do have ourselves a speaker grill down there and a microphone hole, SIM card tray. Now, one thing about the S Pen is it's not Bluetooth. It's also not reversible. Well, it is reversible, but it doesn't look right when you put it in the wrong way. Let's go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. So you'll see right there, let's get into detail, that the Samsung phone right there just kind of looks a little bit strange when you go ahead and put the S Pen in the wrong way. So that's the S26 Ultra. On the front there, you'll find yourself that 6.9-inch display there, 90.7 screen to body ratio. One thing I noticed is they did increase the size of the punch hole camera. I'm not a major fan of that. And the edges of this phone are definitely more rounded. They do feel more comfortable in the hand, and this phone overall just feels much more user-friendly versus the sharper corners of the previous Ultra lines in the past. But it does kind of give you, sometimes if you look at some of the A-line phones, it kind of gives an A-series kind of look in some angles. So I don't really love that because it kind of doesn't look quite as premium as some of the previous years. I'm talking like S24 Ultra, for example. Those phones were just ridiculous premium looking, even if they were pretty sharp in the corners. That's for sure. Now, moving on to iPhone, I'm not going to harp on this one too much. You know what it is. You've seen it 1,000 times. But just a quick recap here, 233 grams. This phone right here is 8.8 millimeters thick. Apple went with all aluminum to dissipate heat. Also giving you this cosmic orange, which, man, this thing really still stands out. Even here several months later, this thing just pops, and I hope they continue that. But super rounded corners over here. Again, the two-tone design stands out as unique. I actually think the iPhone is more changed design than the Samsung because they kind of stuck with almost exactly the same as S25 Ultra, but made a couple of changes, whereas with the iPhone, they totally changed the back. So this phone actually looks to me slightly more fresh of an upgrade, even if it's not the newest phone out anymore. IP68, and it is the newest on shelves, but I mean, didn't just come out like last week. It's like 6-7 months old already at this point, but it still looks very fresh. So at the end of the day, which one do I think you should choose in terms of the build? In the body, I think if you appreciate really clean design, good design, and feel in the hand, I would say that the iPhone feels nicer to hold because of the rounded corners, but also because it's just smooth across the board right there. And the phone just feels more balanced, the weight. It just feels like a straight brick. I mean, brick isn't, it's a little bit heavier, but it's just like the weight is just very balanced. It's dense. The Samsung also feels pretty good, but it's still a little bit less comfortable to hold on the whole, but it is lighter though. So if you like a lighter feel, you'll like that. But the phone itself still just a little bit less comfortable to hold to me than the iPhone, but at the end of the day, it's definitely a lot better than the previous Ultras. But if you appreciate the vertical camera array, the clean look of this white, or some of the color options they offer, I do think you're going to be happier with the Samsung's design language overall. So either way you go, it was a really tough call. I just think the iPhone is just a little bit nicer to hold this year, but they're both extremely beautiful phones. And I don't think you're going to have too much of an issue either way you go. They're like playing at the top of the game. You know, we thought Apple was going to be the one going to less of a button feel, but Samsung is actually the one with the cleaner, less buttons. You have volume rocker and power button, and that's it. Look at this left side of the phone. It's extremely clean. There's nothing on there. And because they went with aluminum, they were able to hide the antenna, the 5G antenna, like you'll find on the S25 Ultra. Let me go ahead and show you that really quickly so you know what I'm talking about. This right here on titanium phones, you're going to see that. Even on iPhones, you'll see that. So that's just a clean edge. Now on iPhone, a lot of people thought they were going buttonless, but they have more buttons than ever. You have the power button here. You have the camera control button here. You have the action button there, and two separated volume rockers. So a lot of buttons going on there. So which to choose when it comes to display? We'll talk about the S26 Ultra first here. Now this is going to be the dynamic AMOLED 2X display. However, they did change the pixel arrangement, and some people have actually returned their display or their Samsung S26 Ultra just because the way the text looks on certain edges and certain angles is pretty sensitive to certain people's eyes. It's mostly down to this privacy display option that they brought, which has been marketed, and you've probably seen it already, but it is a pretty amazing feature if you're going to take advantage of it. But it has changed the pixel arrangement to make this work, and so that is something that, and it's at the hardware level, so I don't know how much they can do software-wise. It has been something of a complaint for a few people, but the actual privacy display feature is pretty insanely awesome, and I definitely think if you want a more innovative panel, the Samsung is where it's at. It actually has a higher pixel density of 500 ppi, which means sharper text. However, some people won't agree that it looks sharper because of the pixel arrangement. Again, this is something you'll have to zoom in and look really closely at. For me, I think it's like when you're really pixel peeping, when you really get looking close and you're looking for stuff, then you're going to see that potentially, but it's one of those things that's kind of like PWM. It doesn't affect everyone. So you would want to try this display out first, but I can tell you at its core, it is definitely a little bit less vivid than the S25 Ultra, but still vivid. Still more vivid, I find, than the iPhone 17 Pro Max, especially when you crank that vivid slider up. It's still a little bit more customizable. You do have a True Tone like feature on here called Adaptive Color Tone. You also have Eye Comfort Shield, which is kind of like Apple's Night Sight. So that works well. In addition to that, it is the 120 hertz. But from a distance, when you turn on QHD, it's still very sharp. It's still very colorful. It has great viewing angles, and it's still OLED, so it still looks very contrasty and beautiful. It's really a really beautiful display. It's kind of just like the S25 Ultra, but with that privacy display option. Now, you don't have to turn that on all the way. And I do want to mention, if you do turn on maximum privacy display option, it really makes the phone look kind of strange. So I would not turn that on if you don't want the display to look kind of strange, because it definitely does that to the panel. But it does give you the max privacy protection there, but still, it definitely makes it look a little strange. You actually don't even have to use it like that. You can just set it for conditions to turn on, click the certain applications that you want it to turn on for. For example, you'll go there and maybe put on a bank, for example. You don't want people looking in your bank account and stuff of that sort. And then you'll be on your way. So you don't even have to really worry about it turn on. It'll just turn on when you click those certain app actions. So that's pretty cool. But other than that, it's not that much different than what you're used to from other Samsung phones. Very sharp, very nice to read on, very large. That punch hole is larger though, so you will see it more than before, which I'm not a fan of. And the display is very smooth and supports S Pen, which for some people who haven't tried it before are still going to really like. Jotting down notes here on the Galaxy S26 Ultra. It is still a key separating feature, regardless of the fact that it doesn't have Bluetooth. It is still not available on iPhone. So that is a separating feature if you're going to take advantage of it. It's just not quite as feature packed as it used to be on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. So I kind of miss it. I wish they would bring back the Bluetooth features, but I don't know. We'll see if it happens. Samsung has done this before where they've taken away features and brought them back. But lately, they've been kind of taking away more features than bringing features, so I'm not a fan of that. When it comes to the iPhone display, you are looking at an LTPO Super Retina panel. Now, what I really like about the iPhone's display is that it is an incredibly well-tuned, calibrated panel. Like, this is the type of display that you just like the way it looks without doing anything to it. So you don't need to go into the settings and mess with the contrast or anything like that. Right out of the box, it looks absolutely tuned nearly to perfection in terms of it's not too saturated, it's not undersaturated, it just looks good. And then you can turn on True Tone that adapts to different lighting scenarios, and it really helps. Also, both of these do have anti-reflective properties, although I do have a screen protector on there, which is making mine not look quite as anti-reflective. But if you go to display and text size, they also have this display pulse smoothing feature in the iPhone, which allows for less PWM. That's pretty good. And while the punch hole did increase in size, the iPhone, let's face it, does have a big blotch up there, the dynamic island. While it is functional, it is also a big disturbance to watching media and stuff like that, especially if that media, you stretch it out and it goes into the dynamic island. It is noticeable. People don't seem to care. These iPhones still sell in the millions, but I'm just saying, I'm just pointing out an area I think that the phone would be a bit more exciting if the device was a full all screen. But it doesn't have the sharpest resolution. The Samsung is actually sharper with a higher density. Most people aren't going to be able to see the pixels anyway, so they won't care. But just had to point it out, the Samsung is quite a bit sharper. Brightness wise though, the iPhone gets really bright. It can 3000 nits peak. That's actually a little bit brighter than the Galaxy. However, you got to kind of tweak that in when you get into the sunlight. With the Samsung, you can actually take advantage of its full 2600 nits peak by just going to this extra brightness mode. So you can actually take advantage of its brightness more easily on the S26 Ultra. You're going to have to get in an area where it triggers it on the iPhone. So again, with more customizability, the display optionality on here is better. But for some people, they're not going to like that new pixel arrangement. They're going to think the display looks a little strange if they're very sensitive to pixels and PWM and stuff like that. I think most users are still going to love the S26 Ultra, but there are going to be quite a few who are not a fan of that new hardware underneath, which does enable the awesome privacy feature. But we don't have that here on the iPhone, no privacy feature, but it does actually have the same exact screen to body ratio. So their bezels are they're actually identical basically in their thinness of the bezels. So at the end of the day, which to choose for display? Well, I think you should take a look at the S26 Ultra's display before choosing. Play with it in the store a bit, read some articles, turn on some angles. and really dive into some content before you get the device. But it is, to me, I got used to the display after a few days, and it's a lot like the S25 Ultra. It's a really strong display. It does have a little bit more, a worse PWM, and the iPhone, though, I think is a little bit more, going to be more, everyone's going to just kind of like the display quality. It's great. It's just really well calibrated. It's smooth. It's sharp enough, has anti-reflective. Dynamic island, yes, a little bit annoying, but at the end of the day, the display itself is very, very good. So either way you go, you're going to win. So let's go ahead and talk about software, which to choose here. Well, the Samsung's going to offer you a One UI 8.5 with 7 years of updates promised. So very, very nice. Android 16. There's rumors Samsung's already working on Android 17, but the deal is here is that the icons really pop out here on One UI 8.5. You're going to see a lot more consistency across the board. Of course, the privacy display feature. You do have Samsung DeX to a monitor with the cable, so that's pretty neat as well. And also, you do have more customization than the iPhone, like we've always talked about on this channel, so that's still an advantage to Samsung. The Good Lock features allow you to really customize. But I think the main thing I notice a lot with Samsung is my multitasking abilities. I feel like I'm using a phone that is more like a computer in my pocket if I want it to be, or it could be more like an iPhone like this if I just play around with the features. But again, to me, it takes more setup. It takes more time to really get it laid out how you want it on here, but it is just more fun. Let's just put it that way. I feel like when I'm using the S26 Ultra, I don't want to put this phone down. Like, it is fun to use. It is just like a toy to me. I'm not saying it's a toy, like it's literally a toy, but that's how, when I'm playing with it, it feels like that. Like I just like a kid with his toy, like just so many features. I just want to play with this phone for hours and hours, play games, watch movies, go on Samsung TV, download apps, use the S Pen. It's just fun, dude. And then if it is a serious day, you can go ahead and turn down the vividness. You can set it up in dark mode, do what you got to do, turn on your privacy display, and it could be a very professional, serious tool. Let's go ahead and put on natural for a minute, tone down the colors, and get on with the day. So that is really cool as well. Also, Samsung, to me, is pushing the AI a little bit better than the iPhone. They had way more AI features to begin with first, and they improve on it here, including AI within the camera processing. So you're going to be able to get some very smooth video. We'll show some video and camera samples later, but some very smooth video and photo due to the AI that's on board here. Also, Gemini is integrated. The Bixby is better than ever. And generally, this phone, we can go on and on all day about software. You're going to find features in here months down the line that you didn't even know existed. Like, this phone keeps you entertained for a long time while still having a polish and all the advanced features you would want in a device. So to me, that's how I feel about the Samsung. And they're also getting better at the speed with their software, the look. It just kind of looks a little bit better than it ever did. So it's a really refined, polished, but also feature-packed experience on here. It just is. They're really crushing it there. Now, the iPhone is tried and true. It's the ecosystem. It's the Apple ecosystem. Everything matches up smooth. It's polished. It's liquid glass. You do have several years of updates on here. But to me, it's the one that provides the more in the background of your life. It's the more appliance-like feel. It just works. You don't think about it too much, but it's always there for you. It's like, it's a trusty old friend, the software. It just always, you can always count on, even if it crashes here, gives you a bug here and there, the software gets the job done. And it matches up with your Apple Watch, your Mac, all your Apple gadgets extremely well. Not the Samsungs do those as well too now with their ecosystem, but that's a video for another day. But with iPhone, I think you're getting really, really polished and refined and optimized operating system. However, iOS 26 has needed some work. I hope 27 really works on, stability and stuff like that. But I still think a lot of the apps in the App Store and certain things still look more polished on the iPhone in 2026. But the gap is really closing. It doesn't really feel like it used to, like it was ahead like it was before. At the end of the day, pick the iPhone if you're invested in the iOS ecosystem with the iMessage, FaceTime, the Mac, the Apple Watch, all that stuff. This is going to be the pick right here. But Samsung, man, they're really doing a good job with their Galaxy tablets, their Windows tablets, the whole ecosystem. It really is, it's a really tight race here these days. So which one is better in performance? Well, we already closed that conversation in our speed test the other day. The Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra. Choose this one if you want better performance. Not only is it faster for day-to-day tasks, but it's faster animations, faster, snappier feel, and vertical. You can see you can go vertical app drawer here. Generally, tasks just feel to fly along faster on this phone every day, and to me, it's more stable on my daily. So I like the performance more on the Samsung. Also, when you're playing games, the vapor chamber is bigger than ever. The Samsung should stay a bit cooler, but with the way Apple has designed the iPhone 17 Pro Max, I found that the iPhone actually is the one that stays a little bit cooler to the touch, regardless of the fact that the Samsung did increase that vapor chamber size. So either way though you go, they're both really good performers in games. iPhone stays cooler, but guess what? The Samsung has better sustain and higher graphic ability. So this phone actually performs better in extended gaming sessions, while the iPhone stays cooler in those sessions, but also performs extremely well. So the Samsung's cameras, while they did still bring the 200 megapixel like they had in the past, one of the things I gotta say is that the actual processing of the pictures is turning out a little bit better, sharper. I'm getting really good results, and the zoom, just like always, is incredible. You'll just see some incredible detail. Abilities to zoom are just phenomenal on this phone, and what I do like is that on the video side, it got much smoother when you're like trying to take motion photos and videos. In addition to that, you can do log over here, and you can change different LUTs now on this phone, right on the phone. That is super professional stuff right there. So you can really just change the look on the fly. That's so much better than having to do it post-processing, in an editing software. It's saving you time. So if you want to do professional stuff, the Samsung Ultra is no joke. You can also go 8K, although I don't recommend using it because editing that thing or transferring that thing is going to be massive. So I tend to stick to UHD 60 at the most. If we go over here to the more section, you'll see Expert RAW, Food, Pro Video, Promotion. Did I say promotion? Pro Video, Slow Motion, Hyperlapse, and Portrait Video. And you can move those around, and there's more you can add to this camera. On the front side though, Samsung didn't really make this a super ultra wide camera. It does have decent depth of field, but it's not the most ultra wide. So I still want to see more ultra wide like we see on the iPhone over there. But generally, this camera has impressed me for sure. It seems a little bit better than the Galaxy S25 Ultra, but not like super game-changingly different. But if you're coming from a 24 or a 23 Ultra, I think you'll be pretty happy there. With the iPhone, I've come to become accustomed to the camera control now. While some people say it's a not really needed feature, it probably isn't on a touchscreen smartphone, but at the end of the day, I kind of miss it when I'm not using my 17 Pro Max. 17 Pro Max still has incredibly reliable photo and video, and I think it's still the faster shutter speed. I think the video still looks better right out of the camera for social media and stuff like that. At the end of the day, Samsung has a great overall package, but iPhone is still tough to beat in this area. They really are. They also have log, but again, just like always, the iPhone is extremely, got to go into settings 1,000 times to go get certain things done. So you do have more now than ever in the camera, but there's still certain things you got to go into settings to do. So to me, the camera layout could still be a little bit better on the iPhone by adding the settings there. But what really blows me away is the front-facing camera. Look at how ultra-wide this thing is. Like the Samsung, it was like right on the face and the camera. Over here, you can see all my shoulders and everything. This phone on the front-facing camera is just phenomenal. So I do want to see that ultra-wide angle make its way to other phones, including the Ultra. So at the end of the day, which to choose? I would say iPhone for front-facing camera and uploading video and photos. Well, mostly video, because you could just tweak photos, whatever, how you want to social media. I'm going to go with the iPhone for that. Go with the Samsung if you like to fine-tune your photos in your videos, you like to use pro modes, and you love zoom. And you like some AI processing as well, because they got some really smooth video where even when you're in motion, it doesn't really lag. So this is going to be the phone for that. But again, it's still crushing the iPhone on zoom. There's no competition there. Generally, that's where I'm going with the Samsung. It's still a super compelling package for everything you get. But to me, the iPhone is still the more consumer grade feel. The consumer who doesn't really know how to like do a lot of photo and video, the Pro iPhone makes you feel like a pro without knowing what you're doing. But if you want to do stuff, you can do it here. Whereas a Samsung, also really good for the consumer, but is a bit better for the pro who wants to add LUTs, log, do 8K. Like, it's still a little bit better there. Now, when it comes to the battery, I gotta say, Samsung is squeezing the most they can out of this 5,000 milliamp, but there's only so much you can squeeze out of it. Regardless of how efficient the chip gets, this phone doesn't last as long as the iPhone 17 Pro Max. That's the bottom line. That is the end of conversation. Simply is not as good in battery life. I get a couple hours to 2-3 hours more on the iPhone. I don't care what those battery tests say. This is my experience. This is what I've been experiencing. I definitely charging my Samsung more and it drains more in my pocket. The iPhone just lasts a little bit longer, especially throughout heavy use days. But the Samsung is not a slouch either. It's not a phone that you're going to have to charge up, multiple times. You can charge this thing once, 100, leave the day, you're getting through the day. But the iPhone's still pulling ahead in actual runtime. So it's crazy to say, but the iPhone 17 Pro Max still has a bigger battery than this Galaxy S26 Ultra. So it's a little bit strange to say. I'm used to seeing Samsung outspec iPhone on everything. But this time around on the eSIM model, we have 5088 over here. When you have a bigger battery than the Samsung Galaxy on iOS, controlling hardware and software, I'm not surprised. The iPhone is taking the cake there. Also, their CPUs are extremely efficient with their A19 series. So are the Galaxy chips, the Snapdragon for Galaxies. But for real though, the iPhone, in my experience, lasts longer. So pick it for that's battery that you care about. Pick the Samsung if you care about fast charging though, because it charges faster. When it comes to audio, firing out the bottom of these phones and the top, the iPhone sounds better at the loudest volume, but the S26 Ultra with its Dolby Atmos mode sounds louder. So you can have a louder sound, but I think a clearer sound is what I experienced on the iPhone. So let me go over here and showcase to you what I'm talking about. So click right there. We'll click edit and it's actually right there. So let's go ahead and hit done right there. Dolby Atmos, turn that on. You can put it on movie, music, voice, or auto. The phone has incredible audio overall, but at its loudest volume, I found the iPhone to sound a wee bit better in that area. So again, this is very tight though. I don't think most users would care. Their speakerphone calls, their movies, audio is going to sound good. But again, I think it's clarity over here or loudness over here. You choose. So when it comes to connectivity, it's the Samsung. Samsung has given me better reception strength. You can even see it right now. I have 2 bars on the iPhone, 5 bars right there. So there goes 3 now on the iPhone. Wi-Fi is actually quicker on the Samsung Galaxy. It gets higher scores. It does pull in the faster Wi-Fi speed. So those areas where you're connecting to the internet, you're connecting to phone call towers, I think the Samsung is a more reliable pick. iPhone's still very good, way better than before, and definitely not a deal breaker like it used to be sometime with the Intel modems, but now they're getting their C modems on the 17E. But over here, the Samsung is just the king to me of this connectivity game. This thing connects fastest to Bluetooth devices to me. It has the most reliable Wi-Fi, the most reliable phone reception on the market. This thing is incredible in this area. Most people don't talk about this, but it matters. And if you care a lot about having that reliability in that area, it's very good. One thing though is that the iPhone has the emergency SOS features, the satellite via texting. So that could be the game changer for you right there. If you care a lot about those features, that could be a lifesaver right there. I think the S26 Ultra has a few of those as well, but the iPhone's a little bit further along in that department. And again, we talked about some of the special features. You have the DeX mode you can use on here. I'm not talking about the one that no longer exists. I'm talking about this one, the wireless DeX mode you can use on a display. It basically beams your phone onto a monitor and allows it to open windows and stuff like that. Also over here, you do have yourself the S Pen we talked about earlier, but the iPhone has its own special features up its sleeve, like the camera control. It does have the action button we talked about over here, and it does have the emergency SOS features. So it's got its own special features also. Neither one of them though have all exactly the same features, so that's a good thing. You do have some competition here. And then the AI, it's still kind of in beta. The Siri, the visual intelligence works pretty well, but you can do There was a little bit of lag, unless that was me stopping it. You can do the visual intelligence, search, and stuff like that. They're coming along. They're trying to get it, a bit better, but I think it's going to get way better this year with 27. But right now, I still think Samsung's ahead. Most Android phones with the Gemini integration are ahead, so I still have to give it to them there in the area of AI. But I've been noticing a lot of people in the comments recently have just been saying, I'm tired of hearing about AI. I use the ChatGPT. I use Gemini. It's fine. Most phones could run that. I'm good. Like, stop ramming AI down my into my mind all day. So, I'm just saying, this is just like the Samsung is going to win in AI. But really, do you need? How much do you need of AI? That's the real question. You got to ask yourself, how much do I need of AI? One thing I do want to mention, though, is that the Samsung will last a little bit longer when it comes to battery cycles. It is rated for up to 1200. This one 1000. Just a little neat thing I don't think everybody knows about. But wrapping it up here, you've seen it's been a pretty tight comparison overall. These phones are pretty closely matched. Both have Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 6.0. We do have nice biometric in-display fingerprint sensor right here. But on the iPhone, you do have Face ID convenience. So you got to decide which one matters more to you. Hold on. It changed my wallpaper on a focus mode. But you got to decide which one matters more to you. I think at the end of the day, pick the Samsung if you want a more feature-packed experience. You want more zoom on your camera and you want to have more fun on your smartphone. I think you're going to really love the Samsung product. I also think that you'll love the Samsung product if you really enjoy customization, because look, I can have like this little tablet thing with Good Lock over here, and you can go to town. You can really customize this to your heart's content over here and have a lot of multitasking. Over here, no split screen abilities on this large iPhone. It just feels like a really large version of the smaller 17 Pro. But pick this if you want a no stress experience, just kind of simple, just flows in the daily background of your life. Ecosystem strong, polish. You want great battery life, stays cool all the time to the touch, extremely good social media cameras. And we all know, at least in the US anyway, the Apple phone is more of the flex, if you will, for a lot of people. But for people who have the Samsung, they probably don't really care anyway. So that's how I would choose between them. It's been a tight comparison. But if you want to know, Nick, just give me the one you think is actually better of the two. I think from the hardware standpoint, the Samsung is the better phone. It has more features on board. But the iPhone 17 Pro Max hits all the points that matter. It really does. Cool thermals, excellent cameras, the screen is beautiful, the actual performance is great, software updates are consistent, more consistent actually than the Samsung. They come out more regularly, so that's something we should mention as well. But you really can't go wrong either way. That's going to wrap it up here for me for the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra versus the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Which to choose? Choose the S26 Ultra for features, for fun, for a little bit more, I would say, out of a phone. Choose the iPhone for the safe choice, the more consistent performer in battery life, camera, and kind of like just simple, software updates are regular coming in. These do come in, but they're not always coming in at the exact time you see the article when they launch. They come in like a week later, 3 days later. There's still a little bit more fragmented there. But that's it for me. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.